Would you mind telling me whose brain I did put in?
And you won't be angry?
I will not be angry.
Abby someone.
Abby someone. Abby who?
Abby normal.
This is the Abby Normal Podcast, here to tell you that you're weird, and that's normal. My friend Sarah recently created a family. She got married, became an official stepmom, and bought a house, just in the nick of time for some serious nesting. We met each other through work. She's a badass HR lady, but she actually grew up near me in the California Central Valley, what is referred to as the armpit of California. We're going to talk to her today, and we make some jokes about it, which we have the right to do. We also sound very similar due to our Valley girl accents, because you can take the girl out of the valley, but you can't take the valley out of the girl. She recently had a big family surprise that put some wheels in motion. COVID has slowed those wheels down, but there's no stopping this train that left the station when she spit into a vial and popped it in the mail. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start at the beginning with Sarah's blended Brady Bunch. They had some heartbreak early on, with a virus that impacted a lot of families in the late 80s and early 90s. Where do we even want to start?
I don't know.
Like, the beginning of your entire life?
Yeah, from the very beginning, from the day I was born. How much time do we have?
It's going to be a while.
It's going to be a minute.
Luckily, you might not have anything to do for the next 2 weeks, so...
That's true.
Just like,
this is true.
Tell me your whole life story.
I know, I was telling Connie, I'm like, I might actually get some projects done.
There you go.
We never get to work on projects because we're always handling people's issues.
Mm-hmm. Day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. So when I was very young, my parents divorced. I think I was around 2. My brother was younger than that. So I have my brother Matt, who is about 1.5 years younger than me. My dad moved out to a place not too far from where we lived, but we saw him every other weekend. That was back in the early 80s when kids stayed with mom and they saw their dads every other weekend, and that was pretty much it, sadly.
Yep.
So when I was probably 6, my dad met my stepmom, Catherine, and I acquired a stepsister, a stepbrother, and actually 2 stepsisters at that time. As that family sort of grew, we were a little bit more like the Brady Bunch at that point. Every other weekend, just kind of the normal family problems growing up through the years.
Right.
I ended up moving in with my dad when I was a junior in high school. He lived down the street from my school, and it just made more sense. I could walk to school. And then when I started driving, I was the one driving my sister and my brother both to school every day,
Okay, you were the family taxi.
Okay, so yes, I was the family taxi. Jesse, my older brother, had already moved out by the time I was in high school. He'd gone up to San Francisco to go to college. Every summer, we went on family vacations to like San Diego, Santa Barbara, and San Francisco, which is where we all ended up going to college.
Cute.
So Jesse was in San Francisco. I went to Santa Barbara. Elizabeth went to Santa Barbara, and Matt went to San Diego. We all flew the coop because nobody wanted to live in Bakersfield ever again. We had had enough by the time we turned 18. I think it was 18 for about 2 weeks when I moved out to go to the UCSB.
Good for you.
And I have never looked back. I did everything I could to not ever have to move back there. Unfortunately for my youngest brother, he ended up moving back and still lives with my mom right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did he move back?
I think he had gotten into a little bit of trouble, and I think for him, going home and being with family was the best option. And, he decided to quit drinking, and he found Jesus and just is happy living with mom and going to church and being a substitute teacher.
All right.
So, more power to him on that.
Right, that's right.
So...
But you're going to stay on the straight and narrow, so you don't have to move back.
Absolutely.
Good.
Keeping it real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did your mom remarry too?
My mom never remarried. She had a couple of boyfriends when we were growing up, but nobody that I felt was good enough for her. And luckily she didn't end up marrying any of them. But my mom's pretty private. She doesn't really talk about a lot of those things. So I'm not sure if she's really had anybody serious in the last couple of years.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, she's very private.
Okay, then we will not talk about her very much.
I mean, I will answer any questions I can.
And then, so is your stepmom still around?
My stepmom passed away about a month after I graduated from college. She had cervical cancer, and it had been quite a number of years. She got it when I was in high school, and then beat it, went through chemo, did a hysterectomy, all of that stuff, beat it. And then over the years, she had a couple more bouts of it before my second senior year at UCSB. Liz went home to help my dad sort of, be around and take care of her and take turns being with her in the hospital and stuff. And then about a month after I graduated, she passed away. So that was in 2002. It's been quite a number of years. I can't believe how long it's been.
Yeah.
That relationship with her was challenging growing up.
Okay.
It was definitely something that, as a kid, you see the fights about things, but you don't really necessarily know until you're an adult. So, yeah.
So you didn't get along very well.
I wouldn't say that we outwardly didn't get along. There was just definitely this, I didn't really talk to her. I didn't feel like being around her. And I sort of felt she felt the same way. So I would always just talk with my dad.
Yeah.
When I was calling home from school, I'd be like, is my dad there? And, never really asked her how she was doing. I was kind of a brat. I know now the error of my ways, but yeah, it was challenging. We always felt like she didn't want us around. Yeah. And she I think she was a little bit harder on Matt, my younger brother. And so he has not dealt with any of that. So I think he definitely has some good years of time in therapy would be helpful for him. I've really been able to kind of make peace with a lot of it and talking with my sister and getting through some of those things. And I truly feel like if she was here today that we would have a really good relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, being a step parent.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I know now how hard it is.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. And you just never know what you misread because you were a child.
I was a teenage girl.
Yeah. Right.
I was a teenager.
Were you and are you close to your step siblings?
I am close to Elizabeth and I'm close to Jessie, yes. My older stepsister passed away when I was 12. I want to say I was in junior high school. She passed away from AIDS. Yeah.
How old was she?
25.
So young.
She got it in the 80s when it was, the gay person's disease, and nobody was really testing heterosexual females and not really taking them seriously. When the epidemic started, she read a lot about it. She worked in a veterinary's office. She read a lot about it, and she kind of just knew what she had, and doctors weren't listening to her and sort of brushed her off like, no, this is a gay man's disease. This isn't something that heterosexual women get. And it turns out she did have it. And she lived for a couple of years and then she passed away.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. During a time when it was scary for people, sort of like what we're living through right now.
Right.
But it was an actual true thing that people were scared. They thought they could get it from sitting on the same toilet seat as them. So
how did she think she got it?
From sex.
Really?
Yeah. She was bisexual and she had a lot of fun. She hung out with bands down in LA. She was, very goth. She wore leather. She had the long nails. She was beautiful. She had this beautiful curly hair. Loved animals. That was her thing. She wanted to work in the veterinary world, but was afraid to talk about it because they would have fired her. And I if I remember correctly, I believe she did end up losing her job because of it. Back when that was okay still, unfortunately.
Right.
Thank goodness we have laws now.
Right.
And people don't need to be afraid that they're going to get it in the workplace.
Right. Your household must have been in turmoil at that time.
It was. So they didn't tell us that she had that until after she passed. So Jesse knew. He was older. He was much more able to kind of comprehend and understand what was happening. And she had lived with them for a little while. But they didn't tell us because they didn't want us to feel afraid around her. And they didn't want us to tell our friends and have our friends' parents be like, no, you can't hang out with them or lose, you know, because that was truly something that people were afraid of at that time. So they didn't tell us. And I remember I had gone camping with my friend Nicole and her family, like I did all of the time. It was Veterans Day weekend in November. I think it was like 91, 92. And my mom came to pick me up, and on the like 2-block car ride home, she said, you know, Kathy passed away today. And I was like, what? Wait, what? She's all, your dad's going to come and pick you up. So he came to pick me up, and I walked into the house, and it was a house full of people. Like all of her friends were there. Elizabeth's grandparents were there. Like Kathy's dad was there, and they brought us all into the living room and sat us down and told us what had happened and like what the real reason she passed was. And, you know, being at that age, it takes a while to kind of really understand it. And they did tell us, you shouldn't tell any of your friends because they may not want to hang out with you anymore. Yeah. And there's no way that you could have gotten this from her. Just so you guys know, there's no way. And, you know, we were like, all right, okay. Right. Okay. And luckily none of my friends were scared of that. I picked good ones.
Yeah, right.
I always had a really good group of friends around me. So nobody thought twice about that. But
yeah. Jeez. And your poor stepmom.
Oh, she was a wreck.
Yeah.
A complete wreck. As any mother, I think, would be. But, you know, particularly in a situation like this, it was really hard for her. It's her firstborn, her daughter, you know, and she was significantly older than us, you know, and she took care of us every now and then when she wasn't out having fun like she should at that age.
Yeah, right.
I remember when I turned 25, it was a big year for me because I always thought she's so old, you know, and when I hit 25, and I was like, oh gosh, this really isn't that old.
No,
this isn't old at all.
It's not, no. Like, not even close to old.
Yeah, I know. All the things little children think.
Yeah, gosh.
So I had an interesting childhood with all of that. I had a cousin passed away of the same thing not that long after her.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know. That's why I especially like don't tell people. We have 2 now, you know?
Right.
So.
And it's crazy, like, that AIDS is like no big deal now.
Right.
Or HIV rather, right?
People live a lot longer. And had this happened, I think even a year later, there were medications that came out shortly after she passed. Like if she could have just lived for you know, a couple of more months, she would have likely still be alive today.
Right.
So it's super unfortunate. And she ended up passing, I think it was pneumonia is what did it.
Right. Right.
You know,
her immune system was compromised.
She was immunocompromised in a very big way.
Yeah. Kathy, that was her name.
That was Kathy. Yes.
Kathy. There's a weird naming coincidence here too.
Catherine and her daughter Kathy.
Oh my god.
She was Catherine as well.
Oh.
And now my stepdaughter's name is Catherine.
Whoa,
so
that's weird.
Yeah, I know. It's so strange. I know. And Catherine Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is my sister. So
oh, that's really weird.
So weird.
Yeah. So I asked Sarah about her dad. Did he remarry?
He did not remarry. It took him a really long time to kind of get through it. It was very difficult for him. Obviously, I can't imagine losing a spouse, but it was definitely devastating for him. But he had a couple of girlfriends, but hasn't remarried. I don't know that he necessarily would now.
And are you guys close?
I'm pretty close with my dad. I mean, I wouldn't say we talk about, you know, like intimate details of things really, but
yeah, dads are funny. I mean, I'm going to like lump them all into one box right now, but like I would say that I'm close with my dad, but it's like being close with a dad, I feel like is different than being close with a mom. Like,
sure,
we have this picture of being close with a mom where you like talk about everything and you talk all the time and you're like, you know,
yeah.
My dad and I like talk about the economy,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and like history.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We argue about politics, even though like we're on the
Yes.
same side.
Right.
He still argues with me about things. And I'm like, what are
Totally.
you talking about? We're on the same team here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Candidates, he gets really fired up about things. So do I. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty very much like my dad on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not a Republican, are you?
No.
I was going to say, how'd you make it out of Bakersfield?
Oh, girl, I'm so glad I
Losing
did.
your R card.
I know. I know. Oh, goodness. You know, it's funny. I've always sided on the Democrats.
Really?
Yeah. I never had any. I've never swayed to the right on pretty much everything. I'm pretty moderate on a lot of issues, but I've always had a compassion for people. You know, I've never looked at it from a lens of, you know, not helping anybody and not being there as a group, as a society to help out when people need it.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
And also having had a sister who is bisexual and have family members who are gay, like I can't. I have to stand on the side of equality all the way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think that's the big piece is like the more people you know that are like different than you,
yeah,
the more you can kind of understand, I don't know, and have compassion, like you said.
right. I just most of my family who lives in Bakersfield are definitely hardcore Republicans, Trump supporters. I
Yeah.
see their posts all the time on Facebook, and I'm like, oh. I don't know how we had family gatherings together and not everyone was fighting.
I know.
Like
Yeah.
we all got along pretty well.
Right. Things have changed.
Drastically.
That's all I can say.
Drastically. Yeah. So
My family we used to like pride ourselves on being able to have good debates about politics in quotations, right? But just like everything from social issues to laws to political candidates, whatever. We cannot do that anymore. Like that is no longer fun.
No,
like
it's not.
once Trump entered the picture, it was like there's no conversation happening about this.
I would way rather avoid the subject with them at all costs. That's the only way we would be able to get together as a family. Otherwise, it would just be constant bickering. I just can't do it. I see it on Facebook. That's enough for me.
One day, the wind and the empty beach, a seagull sails high above your head.
Okay. We're done talking about politics. But what kind of family does she come from? We heard a hint of it, but let's hear a little bit more.
On my dad's side of the family, it's a large Irish family, very, close with all of them. Now that we have Facebook, I get to, keep in touch more frequently and see what everybody's up to. On my mom's side, it's much smaller, German, very German. My grandpa is straight from Germany.
Oh, wow.
They're very private people, still loud, but private. And that's where my mom gets it. I'm a lot more like her sister than I am her, I think, because I'm definitely more loud and whatnot.
And social. You're pretty social.
I'm way more social than I used to be. I was definitely a shy kid.
Yeah.
I was the one that would like hide behind my dad and wait until I sort of was comfortable in a situation before I would start talking. My sister is the social butterfly. She will make friends with people everywhere. I'm way more outgoing than I used to be. Far more than I used to be. I think college really was what did it for me.
Really?
I mean, I went to UCSB. Isla Vista was my stomping ground. So, you kind of have to be a little bit more social there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, honey. One of my best friends went there. This is off topic, but we had such crazy times.
Oh, yeah.
Such craziness.
Yeah. We were good. Like my sister and I would go to parties and we had the buddy system. So like it was not safe. Right.
Yeah.
It's still not safe. It's probably worse now, but
Right.
we had the buddy system. You do not walk home alone. There's no going. We walked together everywhere we went.
Good.
We saw girls walking by themselves and would be like, we're walking you home.
Good.
That's how we made it through without anything horrible happening to us there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because the level of drunkenness is real high.
It's bad.
But you had fun.
I had
and
fun.
you made it through safe. So good job.
Made it.
Okay. I feel like I interrupted you.
So, childhood was fine. Like, I was the only one of my friends whose parents had divorced. And
Really?
Yeah. Out of my
Oh.
really close friends. So they all had their families were all together. And I never felt For me, it was never a traumatizing experience that they divorced because I was so young and I didn't really know any different.
Right.
And I feel like I prefer that over my parents biting each other's heads off every day. So
Were they on good terms growing up?
they didn't talk much, but they didn't talk badly about each other. I didn't witness any fights that I remember. So I feel like I'm pretty well adjusted on that. I was also the only person in my group of friends who had siblings.
Right. You get the picture. Big family and about to get bigger via a Christmas gift.
So Aaron, my husband, got me the 23andMe for Christmas in 2018. So not last Christmas, but the Christmas before. And I had wanted it because I'd just been sort of interested in doing it and kind of, getting the family history. And since they came out with the health piece of it, I was like, oh, this is how I can, get those tests done without spending thousands of dollars through my insurance. So we were planning our wedding. I just, it was in a box on a shelf and it sat there for quite some time. And he had one too. And so it sat there until January of this year. So January 2020, I think it was like right before the new year, right at the new year. He's like, let's do these right now. Cause otherwise we haven't done them in a year. Let's do it. And I'm all right, sure. Let's do this. So we're sitting there trying to get enough spit to spit in these little things, and you shake it up, you stick it back in the box. And then I drop them off at the post office, in one of the blue boxes. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Now we wait for our results. And I thought it was going to be a long time before we got our results. 3 weeks later, he's like, oh, mine came in. And so I logged into my email to see if mine had come. When you log into 23andMe to set up your site, and they do a disclaimer for you. They're like, all right, you could find out some things that you may not want to know. There's things that could come up that you don't know about that could create some problems in your life.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh yeah, all right. I read and understand.
Check, check.
Check.
Not
so
a
I sent mine
robot.
up. Yeah. I was at work, opened up my email, saw that my results had come in. I was flipping through and I'm like, oh yeah, Irish. Yeah, I knew that. Knew the German, all the stuff that I knew came up. And I went to the health piece. I'm like, oh, because I really wanted to see all the breast cancer things. And so I was looking through all of those. I'm like, oh, and then there's the piece where you get to where it's family members, DNA family members. So I pull it up and I'm like, huh. Shows I have a half brother. 23% DNA. This person could be half brother. So I took a couple deep breaths and was like, all right, well, what am I going to do with this information?
You're like, wait, I have a full brother.
I have a full brother.
I have a step brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is all I have.
Yeah, and my stepsister, and yeah.
Right.
I'm like, all right. Well, it doesn't tell you on which side, but all the things started going through my head. well, I know I'm my mom's firstborn kid, and I know that there aren't any others, because all the information showed was that 23.8% DNA shared, which is, they say, could be a half brother, or it could also be an aunt or an uncle. And these could always be wrong. And I'm just sitting there sort of playing through all the scenarios in my head of who this person could be. If it's true, oh no, it's not. No, this can't be. This can't be. And then I wonder, could it be?
Did you have a gut feeling? Did you feel excited or scared, or what was the first feeling you had?
I think it's excited and scared are the two best ways
Simultaneously.
to simultaneous. For me, it wasn't a anger or a sad, oh goodness, no, this can't be type of situation. It was sort of curious also. It took me probably a couple of hours to message this person. So I reached out. They got back to me pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think it was within an hour. And the message said something along the lines of, I'm not sure how much you know. And instantly my stomach fell out of my body and my eyes just popped out of my head. My mouth dropped open and I was like, oh my goodness. So, and he basically had said, I just hadn't wanted to reach out so that, I didn't want to cause any any pain in your life? And I'm just going, oh my gosh, what does this person know about me? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
where have they been hiding
Yeah.
this person?
It's like kind of creepy.
Yeah, so creepy. He gave me his information and we connected through the 23andMe so I could see more information. His name's Ken. And through our conversation, it turns out there are two of them. I have twin brothers that are half brothers. It's like it's the gift that keeps on giving on this one.
Never ever have you found nobody knows what you're searching for. Maybe you're searching.
Him and his brother are 34, so 6 years younger than me. So, of course, I'm doing all the math in my head. Like, okay, if they're 6 years younger, my parents divorced when I was around 2. So, there was no cheating going on with my mom. There was no cheating going on with my stepmom. So, instant relief there that I didn't have to, like, go do an interrogation with my dad on that piece of it, right? Like, all right,
Yeah.
Since I was at work, I'm like, oh, goodness, we're going to have to talk later. I said, can I call you? I'm going to leave work right now. Can I call you when I get home? And he was like, absolutely. So we talked for a good
Did you
hour and a
work
half.
the rest of the day or did you leave
This
early?
was towards the end of the day. So
Okay.
yeah, I left at like 6. So
Yeah.
it wasn't early by any means, but I'm like, I can't focus
No.
anymore at this point. All I want to know is more information about this. And
Right.
so we had a really good conversation. Like, he is a lovely person. Like, I honestly at this stage, it's still early in this process and this experience. Just learning about who he is, and he has a wife and 2 kids, and we connected on Facebook, all the things that you do. We're like, connect while we're on the phone, connecting on Facebook and Instagram, and just a really nice person. Like, all right, I think we can work with this. Not somebody who's angry, not somebody who's like, but just somebody who has a lot of questions. And, obviously I had a lot of questions at that point too. Like, does my dad know about this? Like, what happened? Where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of questions that we formulated together and tried to figure out, okay, now what are going to be the next
Yeah,
steps?
that's awesome.
So just within an hour and a half went through the family history and how he grew up. He didn't know until he was 17. Their mom told them when they were 17 that the person who raised them was not their dad. Believe that? That's terrifying.
That's fully terrifying.
Yeah, I just felt horrible for him at that moment. That's I think where I sort of just had this sinking feeling of, oh, that must have been awful for you.
Right. That means for like 15 years he's been sitting with this question, right?
Yeah.
Who's my dad? Is this person really my dad?
Yes.
Kind of knowing maybe a little bit about you,
Yes.
but not being able to put all the pieces together. Like, that's torturous.
Yeah. He told me that, he hadn't given it a ton of thought. He had a dad, and the person who raised him continued to be his dad, which obviously, because he raised them.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that they had a good childhood with that person, and that person is continuing to be in their life and all of that. But he told me that he didn't give it much thought until recently. When you after 30 and you start hitting 35-ish, you start going to the doctor and having physicals, and they ask you about your family history. And he just said, I didn't know about my family history. And so that really kind of sparked my interest in trying to figure out, all right, would this be a good time to start looking into it? So he had gone on Facebook and found my dad, private page, so not really able to see much. But my dad's profile picture was a picture of him and me from my sister's wedding like 10 years ago. And I had commented in it, love you, Dad. And so he clicked on me. My page is private, so also couldn't see much, but he knew who I was, and he would have been able to contact me. And he said that he didn't, because he didn't want to cause any unnecessary pain for me. So he knew who I was. And so when I reached out, he told me that he was at work. And same thing, his jaw dropped and like he went white in the face and was like, oh my goodness. And the crazy thing about the timing of all of this is that he had done his kit right around the same time that I did mine. So it was like the universe sort of coming together and being
Yeah.
like, this is the right time
Right,
for you
right.
guys to find this out and meet. So
Right.
crazy.
So crazy.
So crazy. I mean, I've really only had this information for, a little over a month. So we had talked about, okay, so how are we going to move forward with this? He was like, should I just reach out to Dad and be like, hey, I'm your long lost son? And I said, I think, no, that's probably not the best way for us to approach it. I said, listen, why don't I am going to go to Bakersfield and I'm going to have this conversation with him in person. I feel like doing this over the phone would not be the best way to support him, because if he
Right.
doesn't know about this is going to be a lot.
Right,
And it's
right.
going to be a lot if he does know about this, because he's going to have some explaining to do.
Correct.
So it was like, he can't avoid it if I'm sitting there in person talking with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an entire week of, how am I going to talk to my dad about this? I mean, I have difficult conversations with people for a living, and this one was really a lot. Driving the 4 hours down to Bakersfield, my palms were all sweaty, and
Yeah.
I was like, don't drink too much coffee. I don't want any extra jitters than I already have.
It's truth time. Sarah heads to her hometown to confront her dad about her new twin brothers.
I had told my dad, I'm coming down on Friday. Aaron's not coming with me. It's just going to be me. Let's go out to dinner. And I knew that was probably going to set off my dad's brain to turn and be like, what's happening?
Right.
Which it did. I got there around 7:30. I walked in and I was like, I'm going to make myself a cocktail. So I made myself a cocktail because I needed a little bit of liquid courage to get this one to come out right. So he was sitting in his chair and I just kind of sat up at the counter and he was like, so what are you home for? And I said, well, do you know a woman by the name of this? And he goes, yes. Why? And I said, well, I did the 23andMe. And he goes, yes, I remember you talked to me about that. And I said, well, Dad, the results came back that I have a half brother. And the look on his face was that of like, oh shit. Like, and he said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, actually, Dad, I have 2 half brothers.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, so did you know? And he said, well, she told me, but I didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would imagine that there are a lot of conversations with people that happened around that in the 80s where that was the conversation. And
Yeah, totally.
So I struggle with it a little bit, but I'm also trying to stay on the positive side of this, that all right, let's kind of move forward in a we have new family kind of way.
Right.
My dad told me then, he goes, oh, I thought you were coming home to tell me that you were pregnant. And I was like, no, Dad. I hope that me making a cocktail kind of let that one get out of your head. But no, but it's 2 boys,
Congratulations, Dad.
You're a dad to 2 more boys.
So what did he say the relationship was with her? What?
It was a one-time thing, according to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
It
He
was a
like,
one-time
hit
thing.
it and quit it.
They were drinking and had a one-time thing. And the thing is that, so this person was married at the time, and she, I think, separated from the boys, the man that raised the boys.
Got it.
And then they ended up getting back together.
So then they had a very good reason to like keep all of this hush hush.
Yeah, I didn't dig too far with my dad. There was many TMI moments that I had to stop him because I just didn't. There's just things that I don't need to nor want to know. So I
Yes.
mean, yes, things that I wish to not repeat that he
Yes.
said, and I just was like,
Got it.
please no,
Got it.
I am not here to ask those questions. I'm
No.
just trying to figure out all of this and how we're gonna go on with life now.
I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive it. We only get this life we're in. I think we owe it to us.
He was very embarrassed. He had overwhelming sort of grief that he had missed out on all of their life because of this and not believing that. And so he was struggling with it for a little bit,
Yeah.
just really coming to terms with it. I'm glad that I drove there to have the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
He was embarrassed. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I didn't believe her, and I can't believe that I, let that pass. And apparently, so when my uncle passed away, he was with Catherine at the time. So he was remarried, and my uncle's funeral, they were there, and the boys,
your
were
brothers
there.
were there.
They were there. Yeah. And I think my stepmom said something along the, so my dad had told my stepmom about this.
Oh, okay.
Obviously she's not around to get her side of the story on this, but I guess she said something along the lines of, well, they don't look anything like you. So they just picked up the rug, swept it, and went on living.
Right. Well, and honestly, I can see how easy that would be to do,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
She's got a relationship with this other guy. Like, this isn't even my business. It only happened one time. It's weird with the family stuff. Like, it would
Right.
be easy to be like, no, this probably isn't true, right?
Right. Yeah.
I get it.
I can see it. I mean, and during the time, there's no DNA testing back then. It wasn't even soon that was coming.
Yeah.
Right. So
Okay. What did you and your dad decide?
he needed some time, obviously, before he was going to have a conversation with my brother. And we decided we definitely were going to, he was going to hold on telling the rest of the family till he could really wrap his head around it, which I understand. So we left it that we'll check back in. Like, he'll let me know when he's ready to have a conversation with these kids. They're adults now, but with the kids.
Yeah.
And so I left that next day to go to my husband's family in Carmel. So that was drive straight from one chaos into going to spend time with his family, who are amazing people. It's not that I didn't want to go there. It's just given all of this stuff that's going on.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. To try and put on a face, so, but I had texted Ken. I texted my brother when, I was on my way back and just said, I've spoken with him, if you want to chat later, let me know. And he got back to me and said, yes, I'm off at 6. Let's chat. So we talked for quite some time, and we've, I just left it at that, he's processing it right now. And, I do think that he's going to want to reach out. It's just going to take him a little bit of time.
Sure.
And that's it. Two weeks later, we'd already had planned on going back to town. We'd planned this well before. And my dad brought it up. He was
Okay.
like, all right, so, how do we do this? Like, what's the expectation here? Like, what do we do? And I
Yeah.
said, well, I had told him that I was coming to town, and maybe, if he was around, if he wanted to talk. So let's plan on talking. We'll do it tonight after I get back from dinner with my mom. And yeah, I was happy that he'd finally gotten there.
Good.
It was only 2 weeks, so it's not a bad amount of time. Pulled out my phone, I called him, and they had a conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was a little awkward at first, obviously.
Were you like sitting there, like
Yeah.
listening? To-
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, come on, I could not listen. I'm all,
Oh, so
Yeah.
awkward.
yeah. So, my dad just said to him that, he was sorry that he wasn't around, and that he wanted to get to know him, and, wanted to see if they could get together at some point. And so I think we're going to try and make that happen as soon as all of this COVID-19 goes away. We might be able
Right.
to actually get on a plane and go out and see them.
Yeah. What about the other twin?
I haven't spoken with that one. He's not ready to to talk yet, and I 100% understand. I get it. But it does sound like he's ready to get to know my dad. So that's I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, crazy, huh?
Oh my gosh, so crazy. I'm so excited for you to go out there and meet them.
Oh, me too. My husband was ready to get a plane ticket, like as I was on the phone with the guy, and Ken told me that his wife was like trying to get plane tickets to San Francisco.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, oh yeah, well, he's like, because she thought that he lived there. I said, no, he's down in Bakersfield. But I said, you guys are more than welcome. If you guys want to come to San Francisco, he can drive up here. I'm excited about it. I'm looking at this from a perspective of I have 2 brothers who could potentially be really cool people to have in my life. And I have 2 nieces and a nephew, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it. And then I know my dad, once he kind of gets out there to meet them, it'll be better for him.
Now, did brother number 1 mention why brother number 2 was maybe not interested in this right now?
I think he was just not ready yet. I mean, he and his significant other just had a baby not that long ago. So I don't know if he, you know, what his interest level is really in talking with me. But I did mention it to the one that I've been speaking to, that if he wants to chat, you can give him my number. I'm happy to talk if he has questions or anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And I think I mentioned this to you when we were at happy hour the other night, but the podcast I love is called Sex, Lies, and the Truth.
Okay.
And it's all stories like you, tons of people that find out their mom is not their mom, their dad is not their dad, they have siblings,
Yeah.
all from Ancestry, 23andMe, whatever.
Wow.
This is totally
Yeah.
common. So it might be nice to listen because everybody handles it so different, right?
Yeah.
You have a specific lens you're looking at it from. Obviously, your new half brothers have other things that impact the way that they view it. Maybe even like honestly in a more negative light than what your experience has been. So it might be good just to like listen so you can understand everyone's perspectives better.
I will definitely download that. I am in the market for some more podcasts to listen to.
Have you listened to Dolly Parton's America yet?
I haven't.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, I'll put that one on my list too.
Okay.
Your days are so light.
Okay, we left you on a high note there. 2 podcasts to add to your list. I'm amazed by the science breakthroughs since Sarah's childhood. Effective treatment for HIV, easy paternity testing, and DNA testing that can provide us some of the truth about our parentage and ancestry. But family is created and chosen. Just like she already chose a daughter, Sarah has also chosen to expand her family to include new siblings. Now comes the hard work of creating relationship. Hopefully, science will give us a reprieve from COVID-19 and we can resume building those relationships face to face. The songs on this episode are Blind Love Dub by VJ Means, In Moving Light by Nageed, Reflection Flow by Dachshund, Probably Shouldn't by Jay Lang, and this awesome 70s style track, The Quiet Hours by Saya Bond.